Welcome back everyone. Guess what? We got Android 10, believe it or not, on my Samsung Galaxy S6. Now I will tell you, the process to get any Android custom ROM installed on any single one of my devices is not an easy process, but for some reason on my Samsung Galaxy phones, it's never been an easy. They make it so hard for you so unnecessarily. Now luckily I didn't have to unlock the bootloader or anything like that. This is a T-Mobile variant, I think. So custom ROM, if you guys aren't familiar, basically it's, if you root a phone, you basically get, root privileges within that phone, and then custom ROMs. Rooting is one thing. Rooting is not that hard. I've rooted tons of phones. I have like 15 phones right now that are rooted. However, the custom ROMing aspect are the things that I'm most, interested in. I know a lot more people, they actually are interested in the rooting aspect, but the custom ROMing is the only reason I would root. I wouldn't necessarily root just to get like all these other features. I know there's the other features like, things you can go like, it's just like, because mostly it's like jailbreaking, but the custom ROMs is where it's at, and this is actually a really decent custom ROM, and so far it's been running perfectly fine on my Samsung Galaxy S6. Now this is a Android 10 ROM, which if you guys aren't, if you didn't see my other videos, I installed an Android 10 ROM on my Samsung Galaxy S5, and it ran perfectly fine on that phone as well. Now if I go to About Phone, and if I go to, let's see, Android 10 version, as you can see right there, I go and tap that a couple times, and as you can see, we do have full Android 10, which is so cool. And here's the thing, on my Samsung Galaxy S5, Android 10 was a little glitchy. Like, I could tell it wasn't that great. It was definitely better than the TouchWiz ROM we were on before, but this one is actually not that bad, and it's actually on the better side for sure. It's much smoother than I thought. It, handles everything fine. For some reason, the swiping, when I turn, like, swipe there, it doesn't work. Or maybe because I was swiping here. Everything works perfectly fine for the most part. However, since this is a custom ROM, everything will probably not work. I have not been using this as a main phone. I've just been kind of testing with it, but I've owned many Galaxy S6s and I know how they're supposed to run. And this one runs perfectly fine. Like, it's so smooth, I can't even believe it. Now, this specific ROM is not Lineage. I think it's based off Lineage, but I think it's called like CF Droid or something like that. If I remember, I'll leave a link in the description of where you can get this ROM. Now, everything, like I said, works perfectly fine for the most part. I will go ahead and show you guys some settings real quick within this ROM. But as you can see, it's pretty much all just Android 10, which is really cool. So one thing that I always love doing is I love going to display when I have like an older phone that's, like running Android 10 or any custom ROM. I go into display, and usually the specific setting that I'm looking for is in here, and I guess not. Basically, I'm trying to get into the gesture side of things. And sometimes they do put in system, so I guess it is in system for the most part. And you can see gestures right there. I can go and click touchscreen gestures, and I guess the specific ROM does not have the swipe to go back, which does kind of suck, but everything else for the most part runs perfectly fine. Now this phone came out in 2015, and there's not a lot of phones that came out in 2015 that still support Android 10. The Google Pixel, the first one, came out in 2016, and that one still has Android 10, so the Pixel line are pretty much the best ones. But even for this one right here, it's not an easy thing to go and custom ROM a phone. I mean, I'm not trying to give myself credit. It's not like a completely hard thing either. But the hardest part about custom ROMing is finding a phone that's compatible with not only the roots but also the custom ROMs. So when you have a phone like a Samsung Galaxy S6, there's multiple different variants of this specific phone. You have the T-Mobile, the Sprint, the Verizon, the AT&T. Based off all the research that I've been doing and based off all the custom ROMs that I've been doing on my phones recently, if you have an AT&T or Verizon phone, whether it's at a Galaxy S6, Galaxy S7, whatever, usually on the most part it's harder to custom ROM those phones and or to find custom ROMs for those phones than it is to go and just buy a different T-Mobile variant or Sprint variant or other variant and then just custom ROM those ones. So AT&T and Verizon, I don't know what it is, they have like locked bootloader or something like that, so it's pretty much impossible to go in and custom ROM those devices unless it's a stock based ROM. Like this one is Android 10. I easily flash this one on this phone and it worked perfectly fine. However, if you get a ROM like a stock based ROM that has more features or a ported ROM, those might work on those AT&T and Verizon variants, but sometimes you can't even get Twerp or Clockwork Mod Recovery or any of those installed on those phones, which sucks. So for the most part though, everything that I've been running with so far has been perfectly fine, as you guys would probably tell from the videos that I'm showing you. The gaming also, isn't necessarily the best. Which obviously at this point you guys probably already expected. It's not, the latest and greatest, but I am so surprised about how smooth this phone is. It's the smoothest phone I've ever seen from a Galaxy S6 lineup. I mean, usually even when I had this phone on stock software, which I think stopped at Android 7.0, that thing was not that great, man. That thing stopped on a really weird, I think whether it was the end of TouchWiz or the beginning of Samsung Experience, it was a very weird process. I'm not really too sure what they were doing there. Even One UI now is much better, but it still has a long way to go. And as you can see, it works perfectly fine. And my favorite thing about this specific ROM is this right here. I can swipe up and I can get into that gesture-based design. And that really is one of the most important things in my opinion. Having that capability of actually going and getting those newer type of features is super awesome. And what I can tell you is that one thing about custom ROMing, whether you like the features or not, or you don't use them, whatever, it just makes you feel like you have the latest and greatest. And if I had to use the Samsung Galaxy S6 on an everyday basis, I would 100% custom ROM it. That way I could still feel like I have a very good phone. And one thing that I've been doing and showing you guys is the performance on this thing is still top tier. Even when I compared it to my Samsung Galaxy S5 that was on Android 10, that honestly was not that great. I'll be honest, it was good. And it was amazing for it, I'm going on an Apple website, and it was amazing for it being on that specific software. I think that was really cool. And, the Galaxy S5 wasn't necessarily the fastest thing in the world either. It was definitely faster than the stock software was already on, but it was still kind of slow. But this one, on the other hand, is like just as fast as I was expecting. Like, it's really smooth. It's like, it doesn't glitch up on anything that I really wanted to do with it. And this is the 2015 phone as well. I would love to compare this to a Galaxy S9 on Android 10 and see how those two compare. Maybe this one will end up being faster, because if you think about it, this has a lot less moving pieces in the background. It has a lot less background processes and all that. So because of that, that might mean that this might be a better performing phone in the long run. That might not be the case, but it is something to kind of consider. Now, another cool thing within this stock software, or this Pixel experience, whatever it is, you have the capability of having that dark mode on, which is something that's really cool. Again, whether you utilize it or not, it's just something that adds a little bit more flavor into your device. So it makes it feel like you have, one of the newer devices like the Pixel 4 or something like that. Now, in this case, I'm going to go ahead and turn it off because I do kind of like the light mode. But in terms of the features and everything you have built in, features that are built into this specific custom ROM, but that's mostly because it was pretty much just a port over to the, from the standard Pixel ROMs and the standard stock software that we have now. They're pretty much just porting that over to this one. However, for some reason, they don't have the customizable gestures, which was really weird. I was hoping they would have that, but I think it's perfectly fine at the end of the day. I think a Lineage OS probably is a better way to go, but I was not able to get Lineage OS installed on any of my devices besides my Note 3, I think, and even then I still have issues. For some reason, I'm only able to install a select custom ROMs on these devices, which is so weird. And I do the research, I make sure they're T-Mobile variants and everything, and for some reason I'm still not able to install them. Lineage OS came out to a size about like 417 megabytes on that custom ROM. I remember this custom ROM was about 1.2 gigabytes or something like crazy like that. So for some reason, I don't know why that one ended up working rather than the smaller one, and I actually have the files right here. So this specific ROM is called Evolution X, and it's actually 1.35 gigabytes. So that one ended up working, but Lineage OS did not end up working. So kind of take that as a grain of salt. Again, this custom ROM is very smooth, it's perfectly fine. But if you're able to get Lineage OS working, you might want to look into that one. But this one, at the end of the day, is a little bit bigger, so it might, for some reason this one worked and the other ones didn't. Now, I do have Twerp installed on this phone as well, so if you want to go ahead and custom ROM your Galaxy S6, I would say go for it. There's tons of different tutorials on XD developers that I followed. I think there's a bunch of videos from back in the day too that people posted, and my Galaxy S6 was running Android 7.0, but I think a lot of those tutorials are for any version of Android. I'm pretty sure the lower version of Android you're on, the better. So what I can tell you about this custom ROM though is that I think it's miles ahead of stock Galaxy S6 software. If you're on a Galaxy S6 or even like a Galaxy S5 or any S4 or whatever, I would recommend custom ROMing. The best thing is about this phone is that this is one of the last Samsung Galaxy S6 US variants that you're able to custom ROM. Samsung after this went to Snapdragon variants. You can still get Exynos variants of the S7, S8, S9, but for some reason the Snapdragon variants you cannot custom ROM. So you can't even root them because they all have locked bootloaders or something like that. So if you have a Galaxy S6, I would recommend, custom ROMing it 100%. And if you want to go buy a Galaxy S6, I would recommend probably not doing it, but I'd recommend buying a Pixel or Pixel 2 or whatever. But if you custom ROM it, I'm not lying. I think it's probably a cool thing for you to do. It definitely breathed more life into the phone itself. And honestly, I haven't really ran into too many problems. Usually when I custom ROM a phone, it gets hot, it gets weird, a ton of things change. This one is pretty much the exact same experience as I was expecting. I have a ton of Pixel phones. I have a ton of, phones that are on Android 10, and all of them, work perfectly fine for the most part. And this is no different. If it wasn't for this kind of older design, I probably wouldn't know, but the phone still feels pretty good in my opinion. So that's really pretty much it. I think this is a tremendous custom ROM, and if you're into it, I would 100% recommend you custom ROMing, rooting, and then, eventually installing this ROM if you want to on any Android device. So that's pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions, concerns, or anything like that, let me know in the comment section below. Hit the like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys can hit that. Also check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links going down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys to check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.